What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of The 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below. Thanks for being here, guys, to the best entertainment-related show here on YouTube. And I'm super excited about our episode here today. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. EndWar was of course, a real-time strategy game, guys, that I think a lot of us really did enjoy, but I think it didn't quite hit the potential that all of us thought that this game could really have met. And I feel, and I've said this before, guys, on the YouTube channel about Tom Clancy's EndWar and how this was a game and a potential series and franchise that I thought could be something really special. And obviously, guys, that's just not the case. That's not really what happened. And we all know that, of course, there were some, there were issues on a number of fronts here with this game. I mean, really, when we talk about any series out there, guys, that's gone on a hiatus or an indefinite, pause or into a limbo state, we all know that there's usually a couple of reasons for that. And one of those being for Tom Clancy's EndWar, it just didn't really hit well with certain people. I thought that it was a really great concept myself, and I thought that, for myself personally, thought that it really had some innovative, interesting ideas, and it was actually beyond its time. And that's something that we've actually said here on the YouTube channel a number of times, is that it was just beyond its time. Think about it, guys. The voice, the voice controls and things of that nature really made this an interesting and special experience, even though it didn't hit well on every single front, of course. Part of the issue, obviously, was that this was something going on consoles, and people who were, console gamers playing it didn't really see that, where it could maybe go, like kind of after the very first Tom Clancy's EndWar. And, so a lot of times the real-time strategy genre is one that is generally speaking on, should be at least on PC, and really maybe specific to that. I think it's also really cool, though, having it on the consoles, and I thought Tom Clancy's EndWar had some pretty innovative ideas like the voice controls. But what I want to talk about, guys, kind of getting onto, with Tom Clancy's EndWar and where this series could go. We've talked about it here on the YouTube channel before. I want to talk about EndWar 2 and why this is a game that should exist in the gaming landscape as of right now. So let's get into it. So EndWar, guys, even though, usually there's a number of issues when we talk about a game that's in an indefinite pause or hiatus, and I think EndWar is no different in that standpoint. Had some innovative ideas, didn't land well in every area, and so I think all in all, guys, when you look at the overarching, landscape of gaming at that point in time as well, you could probably, imagine that things were starting to shift. Things were starting to change in gaming. And I think them not putting emphasis on this game being on PC, where it could be, become a competitive game potentially, and very much so join like the other esports games that were out at this point in time. But they kind of took a different direction with it, and some of the sales didn't do as well as they were anticipating. EndWar 2 actually did get greenlit, and then it got canceled shortly after. So obviously, guys, whether we're talking creative differences or just lack of sales, Ubisoft decided to, of course, put EndWar 2 on an indefinite hiatus. And so the reason why I believe that this is a series that does and should exist in the gaming landscape is, there's a number of reasons here, but I will say that one of the big reasons, in my personal opinion, is simply that, as far as real-time strategy games that are out there on the marketplace, there's not that many. This is a genre that I believe deserves to continue and really start evolving over time. I believe StarCraft 3 should definitely come out at some point, and EndWar 2 is another one that I believe needs to come out as well. They've tried this in the past, though, with Halo Wars. This was something that went exclusively on Xbox, and honestly, guys, I like the concept and the idea of having a game on consoles that's a real-time strategy, but it really needs to be, in my opinion, more heavily based on PC because, of course, the hotkeys and really real-time strategies are meant to be played on a PC, in my personal opinion. I think it's cool having them like options on, of course, on console, but I really think that if you're going to have an RTS that's going to be on consoles, you better have it on PC as well, and maybe even do crossplay and things of that nature. And, I think that could really turn into something pretty cool. But all in all, EndWar 2 really needs to exist, guys, in my opinion, because with how many RTS games come out, there's not that many, and the ones that do come out, they're not, anything that are really new, anything really special in my opinion. And I think that Tom Clancy holds the name. This could really help, continue the real-time strategy genre and kind of move it forward, along with games like StarCraft coming back as well. EndWar is, like I said, once again, something that was really cool about it was how they were innovating. They were trying different things, and they did this even with Advanced Warfighter, which, of course, was another Tom Clancy title. The voice activation in EndWar was something that I thought was really different, and I thought that it was actually ahead of its time. We really don't have a lot of games that are like that, even to this day. I mean, you can think about VR and even AR, and you can kind of, there might be games that have, kind of voice activation and such, but this was a game that was really beyond its time, and I think that it deserves to be something that needs to, kind of come back, in a major way, and maybe not on consoles, maybe just on PC. Make it free to play, make it, something to really entice people to start playing, and I think it could be something really special. But at the end of the day, guys, what it really comes down to, in a gaming landscape that is filled with open world like RPGs and shooters, first-person shooters, third-person shooters, and of course a lot of these free-to-play games as well, I think that this is definitely a series that deserves to return. And I think that the RTS genre, it's primed and ready to make a comeback in gaming, and I think that it's time. I really do. I really think that this is something that could be special. Don't try to do too much. Don't take on too much that you end up not being able to control everything. I think that EndWar has a lot of possibility and opportunity to be something really cool. They just gotta, put it all on PC and kind of go from there, in my opinion. But I would love to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about EndWar, and what do you guys think about EndWar 2 coming out at some point or another in the foreseeable future? Let me know what you guys think, and for more EndWar 2 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. More and more on the YouTube channel, it seems like we're talking about VR games, guys. Games that are coming out on virtual reality and are trying to make a splash, that being like Star Wars, the Vader game that's going to be coming out, as well as now, we're going to be talking about Ironman VR, guys. And let me tell you something, Star Wars and games within the Marvel or even the DC cinematic universes, or just in those, universes as a whole, I think they have something special here that could actually really help VR in a major way. I mean, there's other games that have come out, guys, like Half-Life Alyx, that have really shown some strides in the VR technology. But I want to talk about everything that we know so far about Ironman VR. So let's get into it. In an article, guys, that was written by Alyssa Mercanti of Games Radar, Ironman VR will fly onto PS4 this July, according to the official PlayStation Twitter account. The VR title will drop just in time for Independence Day, a fitting time for Tony Stark to show off his aerial moves. As we previously reported, the game was delayed back in January when its initial February 28th release date was pushed to May 15th. With the spread, of course, the pandemic, the game was further delayed with no clear release date until now. So, obviously, guys, this was a game that got, postponed, and then it seems like, as of now, they're going to be sticking with that July 3rd date. At least, let's hope. OPM got a chance to go hands-on and sky-high with Ironman VR earlier this year and called it the perfect match of license and technology. Soaring through the skies as Tony Stark in VR sounds like a ton of fun, and it'll be great to drop those reverse thrusters mid-firefight and soar away from enemies. The dev team at Camouflage reportedly spent ages making sure you could see Iron Man's full arms, not just the typical floating hands players have gotten used to seeing in VR titles. And I think that's something really important, guys, as far as from a perspective of while you're, playing a VR game, it's really important that, yeah, you get to see, you aren't shown too much because you want to be immersed as that character and really feel like you are that character. But at the same time, you want to be reminded throughout that you are that character. And then, of course, the story in Iron Man VR won't follow any of the Avengers plot lines from the films or comics. It's an entirely original story whereby Stark has to confront ghosts from his past. It's clearly drawing from the films and comics for inspiration, however, as Stark is often struggling with the consequences of his actions. And so, look, guys, as far as, from a perspective of what this game is all going to encompass, I mean, look, I look at this game and I see similarities with that of the Vader game, the Star Wars Vader game that's coming out on VR. And here's why. When you look at these two, types of games, I just think it's like these characters alone is going to be really cool. I mean, who doesn't want to be a Jedi, an actual Jedi in a VR title? Who doesn't want to play as a superhero in a VR title? I think they're hitting on a number of things here that are really going to get people to want to try out these different titles. And it's going to be coming out on, the PS4 or the PSVR, which is really cool because, a lot of people who have the PlayStation 4 do have the VR headset or bought it separately. And so this is going to be accessible to a lot of people. And so that's something that you have to really keep in mind. I mean, versus that of like Half-Life Alyx, when that came out, it was on like the Oculus Rift and it wasn't necessarily on some of the other, VR headsets. It was on a few of them. But what's cool about this is it's going to be a lot more accessible with the PSVR. And so that's something that's really cool, guys. It looks like as far as the story is concerned, though, looks like it's going to be, a little bit, they're going to be taking, some parts in it that are going to be based on probably the comics, of course. I mean, without a doubt. Even the movies, potentially, they're going to kind of take some things from that as well. And I think they definitely should do that just to give you a little bit of some form of like normalcy, some form of kind of things that look similar to what you have become accustomed to in the Marvel universe as a whole, whether we're talking from the cinematic universe, whether you're talking from the comic books, and now with the video games. And obviously with the Avengers video game that's going to be coming out as well, guys. This is starting to shape up to be something really, really cool. And this is kind of more of an overarching topic here. That being that, when you really think about it, Disney is really starting to not only try to pump out a lot of content as far as the movies go, but also now with the video games. And I mean, now moving into VR, that is something that could be really special, something that people really do enjoy. Hopefully it lands in every way that we could possibly imagine. Hopefully that, this is a great starting point at least for VR, superhero titles, VR Star Wars games, and that's the best that we can really hope for it. But I would love to hear from you guys. Even though we don't know a ton about this game yet, we've seen, trailers, seen game footage. The one thing though, guys, is that there's still some mystery to this story, and that's something I love. You're kind of going into this thing knowing you're going to be Iron Man, knowing basic things about the story, but still a lot of things that are mysterious as you play as Tony Stark, and you're going to start seeing more and more, maybe get some, more further back history on Iron Man or some of the other characters. Who knows where they could go with this? But let me know what you guys want to see in this VR title. Let me know, guys, in the comment section below. And for more Iron Man VR content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. When Metro Exodus released, guys, I got myself a copy of the game and started playing this pretty visceral, immersive story that, of course, made myself kind of uncomfortable while I was playing it, not only from some of the horror elements of it, but also just the elements of the environments, the cold weather, the very claustrophobic types of areas that you were somewhat exploring at times throughout the course of the game. And I thought that it was actually a pretty underrated game for what it was, even though Metro has been a series that's gone on now for quite some time. But I wanted to talk about Metro Exodus, and is there going to be a sequel to this game moving forward. So let's talk about it. So guys, in an article that was written by Chris Capel of PC Games, the sequel to Metro Exodus is in development. It's only been a few months, of course. The Metro Exodus, of course, guys, came out, was critically acclaimed, third game in the Metro 2033 series, so we certainly didn't expect to hear about the next game from developer 4A Games for a while. Well, we've actually got just that, thanks to publisher THQ Nordic, as not only are 4A Games working on a new game, it's a new Metro game, no less. THQ Nordic CEO Lars Wingfors spoke with investors today, and in a presentation he revealed that not only was a new Saints Row game well into development, but that the sequel to Metro Exodus was already being worked on by series creators 4A Games. So number one, guys, it's pretty cool that a new Saints Row game is going to be coming on. We've made some content based around Saints Row on the YouTube channel, so you guys should definitely check that out. Number two, though, is for, of course, with this video, Metro Exodus, guys, has a sequel that is going to be coming out from, of course, 4A Games, which is pretty awesome that this was something that already got greenlit. So at the end of the day, a Metro Exodus continuation or whatever, it's going to be, guys, has already been greenlit. So that should give you some real clarification that an excitement, if you're a big Metro fan, that they're going to be making a continuation of this series and it's already been greenlit. We had previously heard that the team was working on an undisclosed AAA project, but up until this point, we were unaware that plans were in place for a fourth Metro 2033 game. Metro Exodus seemed to be a success. In fact, in the report for the investor meeting, THQ Nordic notes how well Deep Silver, which it owns, did last quarter, which the publisher attributes to the continued strength of Metro Exodus. While the reveal of a new Metro game wasn't in that report, despite revelations about Saints Row 5, Time Splinters 4, and Dead Island 2, Twitter user Nathan, who sat in on the investor presentation, noted the announcement about 4A Games' next project. He tweeted saying, Volition's new Saints Row game is well into development, and 4A Games is indeed working on the next Metro game, Wingfors said during the investor presentation. So, despite the continued growth and critical success of the series, the reveal of a new Metro game is still a little surprising. The entire premise of Metro Exodus was about getting away from the Metro, and without spoiling anything, the events that occur do make a sequel difficult. So, look, at the end of the day, guys, I think that having a sequel to Metro Exodus, I think that he's right that, we don't know where they're planning on going with, of course, the continuation here. Is it a Metro Exodus 2, or is it just going to be something completely new? Are they going to go further in the future, maybe in the past somewhat, somewhere else? Who knows what they're planning on doing? I don't think it would be as hard as what he, as Chris is saying, it might be kind of tough, based on the ending of Metro Exodus, but I think that there's a lot more that they could still explore in this universe, in my personal opinion, that you could continue somewhere else, a completely new, timeline. Maybe it ties in at some point or another to Metro Exodus. Who knows? All I know, guys, is that I'm excited that they have a continuation that's going to be coming out, and it's been confirmed. However, here's the one thing that I think for this series to progress and continue, in my opinion, they've really got to stress or kind of put some emphasis on not only the single-player story, but also that of co-op and multiplayer, I believe, to make it a full package deal to get people to come back over and over again to this series. This is a game in a series that seems like it would be primed for almost like a battle royale mode in the Metro Exodus world. I think it would be something that would be a really cool idea, but even at that, having multiple multiplayer modes, having some co-op modes, guys, I think would be really cool. I think having a full package as well as, having that single player experience is really important, because most of us are there for the single player experience. But of course, if you're a big Metro fan, you're going to want to come back to it after being in the game a couple of times, and that being like a multiplayer and co-op modes could certainly do that. Especially playing with my friends, I think that would be something I would absolutely love. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you guys want to see in Metro Exodus 2 or the next Metro game? Let me know what you guys think. And for more Metro content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. One of the biggest fan base rivalries that I've seen in entertainment is, more recently than not, is Marvel versus DC, guys. This is like Star Wars versus Star Trek. I mean, and the list goes on, right? Marvel and DC, these are two passionate fan bases, proud fan bases of the movies, of the comic books, and they will defend those comics and and their movies, whatever the case might be, to the end, essentially. And so, guys, this should be a really interesting topic, because one thing that I have tried to do on this YouTube channel is I'll give you guys, some of the facts, and then I'll give you guys, of course, some of my personal opinions, and then I like passing a lot of those opinions on to you guys, and we have conversations about them. So with that, guys, I'd certainly want to hear yours in the comment section below after we're done with this topic, because this is going to be a pretty interesting one. So here's the thing, guys. I'm going to explain in this last segment of the show why Marvel is winning the cinematic war against DC, but how they're doing it and why they're doing it and how this could stay sustainable, or how DC could very well take the throne away from Marvel at some point, which seems, probably in the long foreseeable future. So let's talk about it. So guys, Marvel and DC, both of these have been two, fan bases, two franchises that I love, right? I grew up more of a DC fan, and as the movies came out, Marvel, I started to really love some of those characters after the cinematic universe happened. And here's, in my opinion, what happened with these two franchises. One, kind of took the approach, a conservative approach, and kind of built the franchise slowly but surely. And the other tried a little bit too much too quickly and ended up kind of spiraling out of control, in my opinion. Now, that doesn't mean that either one of these franchises or fan bases are right or wrong, and it doesn't really, a lot of it, guys, can get convoluted in everything. So here we go with it, guys. Marvel, what did they do right at this point? So Marvel decides to start building a culture more than anything around their cinematic universe. And so what I mean by that, guys, is they started out small. They started out, creating, likable characters. And they started off with Iron Man. And this was a great way for them to start, guys. And they start to slowly build the franchise from that core that started tying things in, but later on. Whereas DC had the upper hand at first, that being Christopher Nolan's 3 Batman movies, the Dark Knight trilogy, as it's called. They had the upper hand because they bring out these 3 movies and many people absolutely love them. I'm one of those people. I thought that they were great. The Dark Knight was probably the best out of all of them, but I loved, The Dark Knight Rises as well as Batman Begins. I thought that they were great movies overall, and I thought that DC would have been smart, or Warner Brothers as well, would have been very smart to continue right where The Dark Knight Rises left off, that being, of course, Robin being elevated to, the next guy up, and kind of followed that story from there. But they decided not to do that and kind of put the DC, cinematic universe in a indefinite hiatus at that point, whereas Marvel is still kind of building this culture around Iron Man and then, of course, some of their other superheroes. DC, then, of course, they start seeing the success that Marvel's having, right? And they started sort of kind of try to reboot everything once again after all the it felt like years later, until they started kind of rebooting the DC cinematic universe. And look, when they brought out, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, and then they bring out Justice League, and they've, Suicide Squad, and all of these movies were good ideas, but they were trying too hard, that being Warner Brothers and DC, to catch up to where Marvel was. Whereas Marvel was building this organic, culture around their movies and really building hype. Warner Brothers and DC were trying to play catch up, kind of, pushing out these movies that were, of course, to try to compete, like Justice League, trying to get that to compete against, of course, the Avengers, which it would have done very well in my opinion. I believe Justice League would have been an absolute juggernaut, even though it was pretty big, and so was Batman versus Superman. There was a ton of hype around it. But all in all, there was so much hype that was built around Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, and when it came out, many were just really upset. I know myself, I was really excited for it, but then of course when you see that the fight between Batman and Superman was like only a few minutes long, and it just really didn't land well, at least for a lot of us fans. And of course the Superman movies were good as well, guys. I mean, Man of Steel was really good. They really tried, but I think what the difference between these two franchises, as far as from a cinematic standpoint, Marvel built it from an organic perspective, and they had like these phases, these ideas of kind of slowly but surely building this thing to what it is today, whereas DC, it's felt like, has just been trying to play catch up, even though they were the ones in the driver's seat, at least between those first 3 Batman movies that came out. So now, where are we at? After everything is said and done, the dust has settled. You have Marvel that has absolutely, I mean, just done an incredible job. Kind of just everyone wants to watch all of the Marvel movies simply because the characters are likable. You see some of these other characters that are in the Avengers, which of course was the big movies, and then you wanted to watch their side stories and such. And so what they did was they built this really great, culture around it. Whereas with DC, with Justice League, you see all these other characters and you kind of want to see some of their, backstories, but then none of those get greenlit, and now all of it, now we're at this point where Ben Affleck no longer is Batman already, and now you've got, of course, Robert Pattinson playing as Batman, which could be a disaster or it could be great. Who knows? All we know, guys, is that now you've got Batman. The Batman is going to be coming out. And I'm not saying it's the last chance for Warner Brothers and DC to get this thing right, because they've made a lot of money. They made a lot of money from Batman versus Superman as well as Justice League. It wasn't nearly as much as that of, the Avengers movies, but still really good for what it was, especially for the movies not really doing very well from a critical standpoint, like a critical reception and, just what people thought of those movies. They didn't really do that well, but from a box office perspective, they made a lot of money for Warner Brothers and DC, so they're continuing onwards. But in order for DC and Warner Brothers, I mean, we really should just say DC at this point, to be able to compete at some point or another with Marvel, they have to build a culture around these characters. They've got to make it so that they get these characters involved for a number of movies. You have those, contracts that go out. I mean, think about all the different characters in Marvel who've been around from basically the very beginning and just have been in all of these movies or have, cameos in some of these movies. It's unbelievable. Whereas on the other side, you're going into another Batman. You're having another, you're going to have other characters that are brand new. What they got to do is just kind of build from the bottom here. I think what they really need to do is build off of the Batman. Regardless of how good or poor this movie is, they need to build off of this. And even if it's like kind of like the first movie in the series isn't amazing, or it's not, great, they can build off of that. And then, of course, Suicide Squad 2 is coming out, and so on and so forth. And so I think it's really important, guys, that this is something that, Warner Brothers and DC do in order to try to compete with Marvel. Now, what does Marvel do? I mean, they're just continuing onwards. Black Widow. I mean, tons of movies are going to be coming out. So they're just consistently building off of what they started. And they don't want to slow down. They're not slowing down anytime soon. So DC, I think that they need to stop trying to play catch up and just build their own organic, fan base and such, because they've got the fan base. They got people who want to watch these movies, but they've got to just start from a very, a base. And I think that even though I believe that to this day that the base was started with Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, they waited too long. Now it needs to start with the Batman, in my opinion. They start with the Batman. This is one of the most iconic superheroes in all of comic books. So you start there and you build off of it. And look, there's a ton of question marks, guys. But guess what? There was a ton of question marks with Marvel. And when I say so far, as Marvel so far is winning the cinematic war against DC, even though it doesn't really seem like a war at this point, because Marvel is just completely eclipsed what DC was doing. And it's unfortunate, guys, because I'm a big DC fan, but these are just the facts that Marvel has done a much better job with the cinematic universe than DC has, even though DC has some special things that are there underneath all the BS. They have something special there, but at the core, they just have to build an organic culture around these movies, and then I think they'll be in a decent spot. But all in all, guys, Marvel is going to continue going. You can just see they're continuing to build this thing, and probably once, you know, some of those actors and actresses, when their, you know, contracts are up, they're probably going to go ahead, either renew contracts, or they're going to start introducing new characters, and you're going to start loving other characters. And we all know that, of course, now Fox was bought out by Disney, which essentially now means that the X-Men universe is going to be coming in most likely to some of these movies. And so it's just going to go on and on and on. Whereas DC is still trying to get this thing right. They're trying things, they're greenlighting things, and it just, nothing is working. So, at the end of the day, guys, Marvel's winning the cinematic war. But that doesn't mean that DC's out of this thing. And it doesn't mean that DC should even really care at this point, because they shouldn't. At this point, they should just worry about just being the best that they can in building a culture around their characters and these movies. And that's, at the end of the day, what really matters. Don't try to play catch up to Marvel. It's not going to happen anytime soon. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Where do you guys think this cinematic war is going? Do you think Marvel's just going to keep going as far as just, you know, eclipsing DC in every way, shape, and form? Or do you think DC is going to finally start building a foundation here for the future? Let me know what you guys think. And for more Marvel and DC content and videos, stay here with Zero TV. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.